And so this rock bed of the Western cultural tradition, placed in Athens, and some scholars have said it's, presented as if it comes out of the blue. Well, no, it doesn't. Pythagoras, Plato, and Socrates were all part of this mystery tradition that we can trace back to a diaspora about the time that Douglas Reed is pointing to this race and this master creed. So Plato says one of the techniques these oligarchs use, if you read Plato esoterically, is that they control all the information because they desire you for this. Um, we can call it the city state that they're building, but there's always in esoteric terms an as above, so below project going on. Okay. Work with me here because I don't have a name for this. But at this moment, I'm going to go to Michael Hoffman III in his book, There on Secret Societies. And I read this a few or more years ago, and it stuck with me, but I can't find a language, and it's available on PDF, and you can look into the intro of how he uses this. And there's a psychological warfare in the material realm that, people in warfares, they when strategically they see the effect on a population, they measure it and decide if it matches the objectives that they have. But we're talking about somewhat of an esoteric kind of psychological warfare that we have trouble in with our material language putting words to, because of course that's one of my critiques of the university. We can only examine things materially within the scope of what national interest would appear to be and through the democratic process, not taking into account any metaphysical relationship between the material world of politics and a metaphysical realm, which Plato talks about, of course, in his forms. Okay, so Plato here says whatever deceives a people, he's kind of telling how this mind control works, this Kabbalistic, Hermetic mind control works. Okay, so what does that mean? Whatever deceives men casts a magical enchantment or an enchantment, and that's magical. What is magic? We don't have a material language to try but this is something, this is clearly a force. Now we could talk about this dimension or another dimension, but it's a force that's harnessed, and part of the force that's harnessed has to do with individual consciousness. And I want to explore that. The material world, scientists can't explain it. Okay, but part of this creed is to channel it, and you can work with channeling it through somehow deceiving people. And let me give you a couple of examples. Let's start here with the magic bullet. And you can see this spelling on magic because it's hard to put words. And I'll find a language when I use, or I'll adopt or employ the language of alchemy when I get there. But for now, let's just look at these images here. The magic bullet. What does this say when compare the two diagrams and tell me, what's not adding up there? Now, do you think that the people that were part of this grand conspiracy against God and man, did they just foul up there and they meant to get a bullet that looked a little bit like it had hit stuff? So this is the official bullet that just popped out of nowhere. I'm not down with going deep into any of this stuff, but a bullet that was found in a hospital. Why choose that bullet? It wasn't an accident. Why choose that bullet? What is that doing to our minds individually and collectively? Okay, and it is an alchemical. There is a mixing of something that's real and unreal and taking us to a zone. And I'll explore that part of the brain in another video. But I want to continue here with 9/11, which I think I might have dropped once or twice when I talked about Peter Dale Scott, because he talks a lot about 9/11. And he's a superstar scholar, and he appears to me like an honest person. Okay. Wow. Now I just want to like some people. I don't know who's watching this, but let's assume that you're one of these people that actually went on your own and explored something. And for a lot of people, the vantage point is building number 7, and it's just visible there. Once you decide to take that leap and go and investigate that, there's if you've looked at that, building 7, and it really like and so many other parts of this whole story that just fall apart. There's an official narrative, and then just anybody with eyes to see, nothing comes together. But here's what I'm going to point at right now, and I don't think I've heard this idea discussed in this way. So we have a magic bullet. Something magic is happening. Magic bullet theory. My theory is that it's an ancient tool of Kabbalism that's moving our consciousness in a particular direction. So look here at 9/11. On that day, these Mossad agents were captured, and they were celebrating. And the question is not why would they be a little bit more discreet, but they were, the police got them, and then they were released, and they were later on Israeli television saying, yeah, we were just there to document it. It's not like we did it. So someone might just ask, okay, so this was not an accidental thing. It fits this narrative with all wars over the last 300 years that they were manufactured. And usually there's the quote unquote false flag incident. So what's fascinating me here is that image. They were captured in a van. Just work with me here. What do you call this in material terms? They're working with a van. They're driving a van with the Twin Towers on it and an airplane going into it. And this information is available. Like if there's a guy from work, well, I read somewhere on the internet. Well, yeah, you do read someplace. There's the police officer. There's a photograph of the van. It's real. It happened. That's what's presented to you. It's an official file. So just like the bullet, it's like, what happens to the mind when you decide to be deceived, or collectively we decide to lie to ourselves? And it becomes bad form to talk about these things in public, like you're the bad person. And what is that doing, to this consciousness that we have? And let's just assume it's in Platonic forms. It's actually threaded to a world of forms or a parallel ideal world. What happens in that relationship between those two worlds when we allow this deception? Well, we're enchanted. It's magic. It's magic. They want that to happen. They want this because they need the clash of reality and something else. There's a magic. I can't explain it. I don't have material terms to describe it. That's why I can only just show you this and just tell you that in biblical terms, these people who consciously see themselves as connected to Edom and the brotherhood of the snake and Canaanites at the highest level, they don't believe this materialism they have us read at school, and I'll get in that in just a moment. They don't believe that. No, the banking elite are a part of forwarding this plan in a big way. Here's another one. James Van Allen, professor over at the University of Iowa in 1958. So this was all out in the news. Television's still kind of new, but it's out there. People read, and yeah, it looks like space is impossible. And they're describing this, and you can't go to Wikipedia right now and get that story. But you look at newspaper, and so now there's not going to be any space. It's just impossible. There's these Van Allen radio, and within 10 years, you have this guy over here saying, "Yep, we just did it." So you can't have both, right? And back to the guy with the van, you can't have a guy on dialysis in a cave and a set of walkie-talkies with some Arabs who leave Qurans at strip clubs the night before. And you see, the more ridiculous the story is, the more you're deceived because you decide. Why? Because we love the servitude. We choose deception over truth, over light, over life. And we choose death. And this is being fought by people that are part of a grand death cult. And so um, I don't have a language for what happens, but I know right now I can't look at those two photographs and not just have some kind of laugh like response because it's laughable. And yet, this is our reality. And it's been sculpted for us, A, by the parameters of the cave. And I'm going to go into an alchemist named Flood and his esoteric teachings that connect to Shakespeare's globe theater. Think about the ultimate in Plato's cave, the globe theater, which has an alchemical, I don't mean kind of, I mean literal alchemical encoding into the entirety of it, capturing the mind through the deception of the phenomena. And that's the world we're living in. And what I think is cool is when you wake up to this, um, any way you slice it, it's a worldview and its eschatology. The project sees itself in conscious um, opposition to the biblical creator. They're not atheists. The Kabbalah, the Kabbalan is something that's just one easy step into their Hermetic Kabbalistic worldview, and another one is Greg Alexander McGee's work on the Hermetic Hegel. So, alchemy is about mixing and matching. The creator creates whole cloth. The left-hand path that these people are on, the Brotherhood of the Serpent and the Canaanites, they want to usurp God, but they have not, see Lily Kay, been able to crack the code of life. So they still back to mixing and matching and making something from. So they themselves are the created and continue to make, but the ultimate goal of the Kabbalah is to make life. And singularity is just a dressed up word, PR word, for their manufactured apocalypse, where all things historical um, and otherwise will come together, and we'll explore that.